reached net zero by 2070, and the UK is really keen to collaborate with India to make sure that we do that. Indeed, here in Karnataka, we're working with the government to build an electric vehicle partnership and an online portal hub. So we're hoping that that will support both of us in our net zero ambitions. And what we hope is that by the two countries and businesses here today collaborating on electric vehicle collaborations, we will go towards meeting those targets. So I hope you have a really productive day today. And as I said, we're all here both in Bangalore, Hyderabad and Chennai to support you as you work with UK and India businesses. Thank you very much.
On behalf of everyone, I would like to thank Ms. Anna and now call upon Ms. Ruta Aithor, the Head of International and Events Communication and International Department of the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders Limited, UK, to present her ideas on UK-India collaboration and innovative ideas. Over to you, Ms. Ruta.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting SMMTs to support your event and inviting me to give you a quick overview of UK developments in automotive sector. As mentioned, my name is Ruta Aithor and I have been with SMMT for over 11 years. SMMT, Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, is the largest trade body in the UK in automotive sector, and we have over 860 members here in the UK. I have been here, as I said, for quite a few years now, and it has been great to see the automotive sector develop in the last sort of 10 years with EV rollout and electrification and technology being on the top of the agenda. So without any delay, I will start my presentation, and on the next slide, please, we will see the situation in UK in terms of policies. So if we would go to next slide, please. Perhaps a little delay. I think perhaps like any digital events, a bit of an IT issue, but I think we're getting there. We'll get the slides up in a minute for those who cannot see the slides. So I'll just talk a little bit while the slides are coming up, that in UK, you know, there are policies and any sort of policies that from 2030, thank you very much, from 2030, any cars and vans sold with a tailpipe emissions must deliver significant zero emissions capability. For example, some plug-in and full hybrids. And how it's done here, as you can see, we're being consulted by the government and with SMMT's respond. Next slide will show you a sort of quick outlook of the market, and we are sort of broken down by a powertrain. So if we move on to next slide, you will see that the BEV market share will reach 25% by 2025 and 71% by 2030. So there will be 9.3 million plug-in cars in the UK by 2030. I keep talking. I'm not sure whether the slides are working or not, but I think I'll just carry on, and hopefully you will see the slides while I'm chatting. Also in my presentation, I was talking about the outlook of our figures here in the UK in terms of registrations. So the registration shows that the battery vehicles have like a market share of 17%, nearly 18% actually in February, and that the BEV registrations increased here in the UK by nearly 200% compared to last year. Diesel reductions due to pandemic and perhaps wider trend to move to petrol and electrification vehicles. So there's a huge opportunities for the rapid growth here in the UK. I'm not sure if the slides are working. I still have the same slide on my screen. Perhaps we are okay. If we can move on to the next slide, please, that'd be great. And the next slide, yep, that was my data. Next slide, please. That's great, thank you very much. And here, just very, very quickly to give you, to tell you about that, you know, the slides, that these figures are sort of year-to-date stats. So again, it shows a massive growth in BEV figures in real terms. And BEVs had a market share of 11.6% in 2001. So if we move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, and then the next slide for you to show this, there was a survey commissioned by SMMT. As you can see here, some key factors holding consumers back from buying electric vehicle cars. And as you can see, list where the barriers are. So we hope for the new you know, trade agreement will be a great opportunity for UK and India to strengthen not just trade, but collaboration and partnership to build modern, innovative and sustainable automotive sector in both countries. There's a lot of scope on innovation manufacturing, you know, including batteries here in UK. Next slide, please. Next slide here also to demonstrate the charging infrastructure here in UK. This slide shows that the growth in charging points in the UK and list of some funding for charging points from the government. Yellow represents to show the fast charging points, so that these are the 3 to 22 kilowatts, and the green demonstrates the rapid, ultra rapid charging points, which are the 50 plus kilowatts. This refers to their power output, which in turn dictates how quickly the car batteries can be charged. And there has been a massive 3,000% growth in the public charging point infrastructure since 2011. And we do think that the government, local authorities and charging infrastructure sector deserves a credit for this massive growth. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. And the next slide, so here are some trends in vehicles and technology that we are seeing in the industry, and we have opportunities in collaboration. So we're starting to see the price of BEV reducing. Various projections point to mid-2020s as the point we will see cost partly with ICE vehicles, more commercial vehicles options as well, longer ranges in EVs, larger and more efficient batteries. You know, we're seeing developments in hydrogen fuel cells as well, both passenger and commercial vehicles. 800V technologies, increased power capabilities, innovative charging technologies, you know, vehicle to grid and wireless charging. We're also seeing more product service building, so where OEMs will offer a home charging point and membership to different charging networks with vehicles and similar. Currently, there are 2 hydrogen car models in the UK, Hyundai Nexa and Toyota Mirai. And not to be mistaken, Vauxhall Vivaro e-hydrogen is coming in 2023, and we hope for many more. Next slide, please. I just wanted here to demonstrate and to show you the commitments from OEMs. So, you know, as you can see here, that shows the shift to zero emissions vehicles and how various OEMs are committing to EV rollout. These slides, if anyone wants, they will be shared in the end. On the next slide, please. Yes, here I really just wanted to demonstrate and to show the importance of the public charging points. So this gives you an overview of the number of public EV charging points here in the UK and explains why this is so important for the uptake of electric vehicles. As already mentioned probably by me, that you know, the public charging matters because even though 80% of EV owners have access to home charging, still 93% use a public charging points network. Places like big cities here, for example, in London, nearly half of people do not have off-street parking. Next slide, please. Finally, here, I just wanted to give you a little bit of where we are in terms of the supply chain. There's a lot of opportunities happening, and I think you probably can relate to some of the opportunities in India and here, UK. So just to show you that the we are open to collaboration on various sectors. And next slide, please. And that is it from me. Just to say thank you very much. We do have a lot of plans here in UK in terms of the gigafactories as well. We have a British Vault, we had an Envision plan in Sunderland. We also site with planning permission to build a gigafactory in the West Midlands and near the Coventry Airport. So, just to say there's lots of growing opportunities for collaboration in EV sector and infrastructure, and we very much welcome collaboration from India. So if any of you want to chat a little bit more with the trade association, please do get in touch with me or my colleagues. Thank you very much for listening.
That was a very insightful presentation, Ms. Rota. Thank you. Next up, we have a panel discussion through which we will look into the strengths of both the economies, the ways in which they complement each other, and the areas where collaborations could usher breakthroughs in a sector that is ever evolving and grappling with questions. For this, I would like to welcome Mr. Sumant Banerjee, Consulting Editor of ET Auto, to moderate the panel discussion. Over to you, Mr. Banerjee.
Well, thank you so much, Shobhangi, and thanks, Ruta, for that very comprehensive and interesting presentation. It sets the context very, very well for what this is going to be the main course of today's event. Now, the world, as we know, is engulfed in an existential war against climate change, and the global transport sector will play a key role in determining its outcome. The mobility sector contributes about a quarter of all energy-related greenhouse gas emissions, and our inability to curb that over the next 2 decades would be catastrophic. The dawn of the era of electric vehicles cannot come sooner, and this once-in-a-lifetime transition opens up, as also necessitates, collaborations, not just between companies, but also nations. To avoid duplication and conserve available resources, it would be imperative for countries to harness each other's strengths to offset their relative weaknesses. India and the UK are particularly well positioned in this aspect. The design and tech prowess of the UK is a perfect fit with India's expertise in frugal engineering. We have already seen this manifest itself in this frenetic pace of mergers and acquisition and cross-border investment between the two nations. This is still an evolving trend, and in this panel discussion over the next hour and some, we are going to discuss in some detail the areas where companies from India and the UK can benefit from each other through collaboration. I'm joined today by some of the best brains representing the industries from both sides. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Umut Jenk, who is the co-founder and MD of e-tron Technologies. Mr. Hugo Powers is the Managing Director of Reverse Simple. Mr. Mahesh Babu, CEO of India and COO Switch Mobility. And Mr. Shreyas Shibulal, Founder and Director, Micelio Mobility.
Hi, Sumant. Good to be here. Thank you.
Yes, good to have you all gentlemen join us at ET Auto today. Just to set the ball rolling, I'll come to you, Umut. What do you think are the key areas of collaboration that can work really well between companies in India and UK?
Maybe first of all, I'll very quickly tell what we do to set the context and also, bring our background. So we are an automotive software company, a young company doing intelligent software for battery management. And in that sense, so we are dealing with all these EV technologies and we are part of the transformation. And what we see, we see a lot of different areas of cooperation between India and UK, but the number one is mainly around batteries and different verticals of batteries. So development of battery technologies, battery management technologies, not just within the battery, but also on the cloud level, bringing all that software into so that we can really manage, maintain, and monitor all these battery fleets, because the world, our societies will be full of batteries, right? It's already happening. We don't realize it, but give it a few more years. One of our biggest problems will be, okay, what we're going to do with all that battery? So that managing the battery ecosystem, battery economy will be very big. And in that sense, I see a lot of synergies between India and UK. Of course, there are some subtle differences. So in the UK, we are more working on the high voltage batteries, because that's what the market demands, on the four-wheel side. And in India, actually, our focus on more on two-wheelers and three-wheelers. So maybe low voltage, smaller batteries. But at the end, the fundamental technology comes together. So in that sense, creating this battery engineering, manufacturing, servicing, maintaining ecosystem could be done from both locations. And in the beginning, UK might be more on the high voltage, as I said, and India might be coming from the low voltage, the micro-mobility side. But give it a few more years, then these trends will emerge. And then those technologies will serve both countries as well as globally, enables us to lead, all that growing EV markets.
Right, very true. We are, in fact, surrounded by batteries, and especially lithium-ion batteries as we speak, because all of our listeners and viewers who have joined us, they are probably using a device which is powered by a battery. We are interacting through devices which are powered by batteries, but increasingly, we will travel and commute by power which is delivered from a battery. So that is the future. Mahesh, I will bring you in. You really are the bridge between India and UK in this panel discussion. You have experience from both countries. What has been your take? How do you think India and UK can really combine together and be a force to reckon with in this new era of mobility going forward?
Hi, Suman. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be there in this discussion. Our experience, that we are a Switch Mobility, which is the subsidiary of Ashok Leyland. We have our headquarters in the UK, in the Leeds, and we have the EV assets of Ashok Leyland working from Chennai. So I represent the CEO, which is India, and I'm also the COO of Switch Global. From our experience in the past few years, what I understand, so there is a lot of technology advantage like lightweighting, net zero carbon emissions related work, and digital manufacturing, robotics and automation, artificial intelligence, sustainable manufacturing, and additive manufacturing are the areas which we believe that we can learn from the UK. India has a very strong cost structure, and we have a strong IT base on software and IT development. I believe that the cost structure of India is going to add value to the UK. Either on batteries or power electronics or software or integrated systems, it's going to play a vital role in it. So if we combine both of our strengths, we can really create a global product which can be exported both from UK and India to throughout the world. If you look at our business plans, either today, we have recently inaugurated a plant in Spain, we have a plant in Chennai, and we have a plant in UK. So we are truly developing a global product jointly, which can be manufactured at the cost structure of India and develop the strength of each of us. Our UK plant is right now net zero. While we buy carbon emissions now, our commitment is to build the whole bus and the transportation of LCVs through net zero emissions. So India has committed to 2070 net zero, UK has committed to 2040 net zero, and there are a lot of work happening on net zero emissions in our production value chain. I also believe that both the countries are right now, if you look at India is the third largest investor in UK and UK is the third largest investor in India, and we work very closely on multiple things. And our cultures goes well and it fits well, and we understand each other and we are able to collaborate very quickly. Our R&D center is both in UK and India, Now we are setting up R&D center in Spain. So it's basically auto industry is on a reset now throughout the globe with EVs and new technologies coming in. Earlier, you used to see India as auto industry, which is followed after some time on emission. But today we are as equal or anything on technology. In fact, if you say India has a strength in software and UK has a strength in lightweighting and auto technologies, if we combine both, truly we can create a global manufacturing and knowledge base on automobile, which can serve the nation.
Right, Mahesh. In fact, more people in India speak English than in England. So that way it is very easy to talk and collaborate as compared to some of the other countries, maybe. And we also tend to sometimes forget that one of the first electric cars that ever came on the automotive landscape came from India, the Reva, and it did pretty well in UK. In London, it was at one time seen quite a bit, especially in the central business district. So yes, there is a history to it. I'll come to you now, Hugo. You are already in the process of making a very quirky looking Raza, the hydrogen fuel car. Give us your sense of what you see when you look at India. It is, as Mahesh mentioned, one of the largest automobile markets. You must have also been hearing about some of the talk on hydrogen in India. There is a lot of talk, a lot of thrust from the government side. It looks like the industry is still trying to figure out. That could be an opportunity for somebody like you that to become global and make India one of your prime markets. How do you look at this?
Well, there's so much to say about this subject. It's a huge opportunity at the moment. I think we're going through step changes like we haven't seen before in the last 100 years, really, not just in the technology, but also in the business models and the constraints that the industry and society at large faces. They're all new. They weren't on the radar in the 30 years ago. And we believe very strongly that hydrogen has a key role to play, but also so do battery vehicles. It is not an either or, and we can decarbonize quicker if we use both technologies. We don't argue about whether solar PV or wind turbines will win the renewable energy race. They're just different, and we need them both. And the same is true of batteries and hydrogen. But I think hydrogen is a very immature technology. We have had battery cars as long as we've had petrol cars. We've got better batteries, but really it's a mature technology, and that's why we are not seeing any hydrogen cars out there yet. It needs a lot of reliance on the science sector in a way that the auto industry hasn't needed in the past 50 years. And I think India has an extraordinary level of scientific literacy and education, and it makes it an ideal partner. I also feel very strongly that that we need to pursue hydrogen for reasons of critical materials. The thing we're all worried about at the moment are CO2, but it's not the only negative unintended consequence of transport. And as an economist said to me recently, a renewable-based world is much more dependent on critical materials than a fossil-based world. And it's not just cars, it's wind turbines, solar PV, and everything north of copper, like lithium, cobalt, nickel, neodymium, dysprosium, you name it, is going to be needed in an order of magnitude greater quantity. And the great thing about hydrogen cars is, other than the motors, they don't have any of the critical material constraints that batteries face. We have no more platinum in our car than in a typical catalytic converter. So those problems are containable. And I think that India is a fantastic partner to help develop this technology. And we are very focused on having, as are other people, on new manufacturing strategies where there are lower minimum efficient scales. And this leads towards developing not just cars that are more niche specific, but specific to cultures and environments, and more localized manufacture. And what we are heading towards at River Simple is establishing joint ventures in other countries, not exporting cars across the world, but joint ventures where we have not just manufacturing facilities in other countries, but R&D centers that work very closely with us. So it creates a greater variety of job opportunities and still collaborating over a global supply chain. And of course, India has enormous opportunities there. And I see for India, the fuel cell world as being a particularly exciting opportunity. It's very early in the development of this sector, and it's much easier to establish a global position in the sector when it's at a nascent stage, rather than trying to play catch up in a mature sector.
Right. I think that is what is even more important, because we don't know what would be the definitive technology 10 years or 15 years down the line. There's so much work happening in so many laboratories across the world. It is more important that countries come together and share know-how, so that not one country goes astray in trying to do something which some other country would have already proven that maybe in future, in some simulations in future, that might not work. And every country has its own pluses and minuses, their own realities. India might not like to go in one way or the other, and UK and India together can help show the way for each other. Shreyas, I will bring you in. Give us your thoughts on this. How do you think in this whole chaos of technology and engineering, can UK and India come together to find the right path?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. A little bit of context about myself. I'm the founder and director of Misalia Mobility. We engage with startups in multiple ways. We have a fund which invests into early stage companies in the EV space in India. We also have a product development facility that other startups can come and use to kind of lower the entry barrier for startups to come and to innovate in this space. I think to answer your question, I think my fellow panelists have mentioned multiple areas in which there could be very deep collaboration between companies in India and companies in the UK. Cell manufacturing, vehicle smarts, motor technologies. UK has a very high competence in research and development for these areas, charging infrastructure as well. But I think, my observation has been that, obviously, historically, there's been tremendous amount of collaboration, especially in the context of large businesses, between India and the UK. And I think right now that is percolating down to the startup level as well. And I think the reason for that is, this is my observation, is that there's a tremendous amount of context and awareness in the UK that of various aspects of the Indian market. And also there's a realization that there's a need for very specialized research and development to cater to the Indian market and to create solutions for the Indian market. And I've encountered startups that are really only looking at the Indian market, who are based in the UK, right? So I think, yes, definitely there are various historical reasons why there's a great level of comfort for collaboration between the UK and India, but I think a lot of that has come from a great amount of context and awareness.
Context and awareness, two very important words going forward. Coming to you, Yumurt, there is a saying that the vehicles of the future will drive on software as much as they will ride on tires. Yeah. So, and India, in some parts of the world, is known as a software powerhouse as well. Sitting in the UK, do you look at India for getting engineers who can write algorithms and code for you better? Is that a potential opportunity where there can be a direct, specific collaboration?
Yes, very good observation, Sumant. So what we call it in the industry, software-defined vehicles, software-defined mobility. So as you said, the whole, not even future, today, everything is now, being kind of integrated, a lot more software technologies, right? What is running on the edge, what is running on the cloud. And so we already have some strong engineers from India as part of our team in Warwick. So we are doing a lot of software development in Warwick. But actually, we already have one or two engineers also in India. We just opened our office in Pune. So India is also an important market for us. as I told you, especially for 2-3-wheelers, electrification applications. But I definitely agree. At the moment, we have a big transition in industry. There is big, movement towards electrification as well as the software-defined mobility vehicles. And one of the biggest bottlenecks is the engineering talent, engineering pool, because everyone is trying to hire software engineers, not just in automotive, in every vertical. So there is a bloody fight, actually. That's how we call it, really. There is a huge fight to attract all that talent. And I see, as you said, India is a really good partner in this dimension. And we are already doing it. We want to do more. And what we want to do, and I think others will do as well, we want to have a part of software teams based in India, which is not new. But I see what is new is doing deep technology in India, not just some of the basics, some of the more common stuff, but really doing some high-tech development, a part of the high-tech development in India, because I think India is ready for that. And with that, you can go to the next level, because otherwise what we see this great Indian talent, but usually they do that greatness, in the UK, in Silicon Valley, they make all of us proud. It's really good. But I think some of that talent can be also, located in India to support this global product development. So we are doing it. We want to do it more. And in that, my observation would be, and I think Mahesh Babu mentioned that the cultural understanding alignment is very key there, especially the leadership in India. If we get some of these Indians working in Europe, in the UK, right, relocating back to India, that would help us to find the right leadership on India to build this, strong product development teams. But this software talent, the software expertise of India is extremely important. And together with the product development expertise in the UK, this can create a formidable force globally to create the future technologies in automotive.
Very, very interesting that a non-Indian is talking about reverse brain drain. This is something that we keep talking about, that why are the best of our brains always go to the lures of Europe or US? Why can't they just stay here? But obviously, world is one, and one is free to go wherever. At this point, let me also welcome Jonathan Watkins. He's the CEO of Impression Tech. Welcome, Jonathan. I guess you got a little late, but that's all right. We're still warming up as far as
I apologize. I had a bit of an IT system meltdown.
No worries.
So
maybe the engineers in India can fix it for you.
Yes, no, I do apologize. So yes, I had a pretty difficult morning with my systems.
Just to bring you in, Jonathan, if you can give us your thoughts on how India and UK can collaborate as we go forward towards electric mobility and beyond. Most of the speakers have already spelled out a lot, but it will be good to know your understanding and your experience on this.
Yeah, so I think we work in the field of creating lightweight structures for electric transportation, both in automotive and in aerospace as well. And I think there are three areas that we see good opportunities for collaboration. First of all, on advanced materials. We have one key element of our technology is characterization of materials. And we need to be able to have those modeled. And there's quite a lot of science involved in that. And one of the companies work with Novelis, who's owned by a large Indian company. And we believe that sort of aluminium materials, lightweight materials, their modeling, and the development of new generation lightweight materials, potentially involving recycling of different feedstocks, will be a very key area. So that's one thing we are actively working on. The second is simulation for forming. So we are partly a software company, and one thing we struggle with is sometimes getting hold of engineers here for doing simulation. And we are looking at partnering with Indian companies to actually be like an island of simulation talent that we can sometimes work with to support our core resources here. And the third area of collaboration is in electric vehicle development, particularly battery packs and things, where there's quite a lot of Indian companies who have UK affiliates over here, and there's quite a strong interaction between UK design houses, offshoots of Indian companies and companies in India, and we're actually working with those to actually transplant our technology into new electric platforms in India, and we're finding that bridge quite useful. And they bring knowledge of the market, they bring resources, and they're actually quite, to be very positive. They want to get on with things. So that's really what we are getting involved in at the moment.
Nice. I hope some of the companies and engineers are listening, because this will be good news for them, that Jonathan is looking for a partner and Jonathan is looking for engineers.
And the other thing is we're desperate now to find companies in India who would like to take on our technology for forming parts. So we'd like people who are interested in developing lightweight structures for the electric car market in India. We'd love people to set up, and we could offer some Indian companies a first mover advantage in this sector.
Right.
There's a lot of interest, because lightweighting is a central part of the electric vehicle solution.
Absolutely. Hugo, let me come to you, and if you can tell us a little bit about this UK government's Road to Zero strategy. And I assume there are specific incentives, schemes there for R&D in battery tech, lightweighting, engineering services, and developing also skills for the EV era. Can you talk to us a little bit about what this program is, and can India benefit from it?
Well, I think we can benefit from India's support in all this. I wouldn't say that the strategy is very well worked out. There's a very clear goal, which is very impressive. The end game is clearly defined. However, I wouldn't say that the roadmap for getting there has really been cracked yet. And I certainly, speaking from the hydrogen point of view, of course, I feel that we are trying to jump in too late in the battery electric vehicle sector, and we're trying to catch up, and we're doing very well at it. But nonetheless, it's a game of catch up, and it's hugely dependent on the critical materials, which we don't have a great deal of access to. And this is why I think that the hydrogen sector is so appealing and has so much potential. It plays to the strengths not just of both India and the UK. It really is dependent on innovation rather than critical materials. And it is an immature sector. And at the moment, there is an assumption that I don't think is very well thought through, that we're going to be using batteries for cars. We need hydrogen for HGVs. Now, that's an interesting point, and I think it's the right conclusion. We do need hydrogen for HGVs, but we've reached the conclusion for completely the wrong reason. It's got absolutely nothing to do with size or weight. And the two examples I can show to illustrate that are one that you can easily make a battery electric HGV if you're happy to do 50 miles a day. But that's not what HGVs do. It's the range and the utilization. And those criteria apply across the board, from an HGV right the way down to the only mature sector for hydrogen, which is in materials handling, forklifts and pallet carriers. Now, a pallet carrier with a man standing with a joystick is a very small vehicle. So it's clearly not size that is leading to hydrogen, it's utilization. And the same applies across the board, from pallet carriers up to HGVs. But it is an immature sector. Mercedes-Benz on their website for their museum show a van with the back doors open. The entire van is full of equipment. And they say that's the world's first fuel cell vehicle. I think it's probably the world's first road legal fuel cell vehicle, 1994. There's been a lot of work needed to get all that kit under a bonnet at a price that the market can afford. And by and large, the auto industry hasn't been in a position to make those investments. And this is why I think it's such an exciting sector, both for the UK and India. We really need to lean on our science base rather than our mineral extractive industries in order to capitalize on this opportunity.
Well, absolutely. I think history has shown us that there is nothing that science and technology cannot do. Once you know what the problem is, there will be a solution. It could take 10 years, it could take 5 years, it could take maybe Einstein one day, but it can be solved. But what we do not want is India as a hugely oil-consuming nation, and we don't have oil of our own, to get drawn into another kind of a trap where we become dependent on critical materials that you're talking about. So if hydrogen or anything else can solve that problem for us, as also for UK, I think that is the best solution to have. Mahesh, let me bring you in, and I want to talk about this whole activity of M&As and collaborations that is already happening between India and UK. We have seen Ola Electric and Royal Enfield, for example, set up dedicated bases for R&D in the UK. We have seen TVS buy over Norton. We have seen Mahindra take over BSA. Long time back, obviously the flagship Tata Motors taking over Jaguar Land Rover. What is triggering this? Why is there so much interest from Indian companies to go to UK, and increasingly also maybe vice versa? What is drawing all of this together?
I think you made a nice analogy of how both the collaborations happen between the two countries. I think it's important. Traditionally, you have to see in the business and then come to auto industry. As we speak, I think there are about 600 to 800 Indian houses housed in UK with almost 110,000 employments there. Similarly, about 500 to 600 UK companies have invested in India. And both of us found what I would say easy to communicate, understand because of our culture, language, and also the technological needs between the people. I think any technology we apply, it should solve the potential needs of the country, of the people or the society around it. So why do we find fit? We have challenges of polluting cities, oil import, energy, security. Almost it is same. And if you look at us, for example, we are opening R&D center in Warwick as we speak. While we have R&D center in Chennai, we find that there is a lot of knowledge base available in UK, which will be catalyzed or catapultized between the two nations to build up products which can serve the globe. So are we going to serve? I think we should look at how do we collaborate and look at the global market rather than only looking at Indian and UK market. The Trade Commissioner, Deputy Trade Commissioner and the High Commissioner have talked about it, that we are talking about free trade agreements today, because UK is right now free to do trade agreements out of Europe because of the Brexit. And India is a very natural potential partner. We have a large low cost center, production house, manpower, knowledge, and there is a demand in UK. Similarly, we have India needs a lot of knowledge base on critical technologies, and the knowledge base is available in UK. And if we collaborate, I think our journey will be very, very clear. If you look at India, whether it is in automobile or in energy, I think we had a very clear plan. I don't know who has laid out, probably I can lay it out, Sumant, for you. It started off in 2015, right? When the Paris Agreement happened, the Prime Minister went there, he signed off as part of the Paris Agreement on carbon emissions. And then immediately he came and set up Solar Alliance. And we also are leading a Solar Alliance with more than 100 countries in it. So there is a commitment linked on 2015. The same Solar Alliance was formed in 2015. There is a complete workout happened in 2017. Niti Aayog released the report on mobility, new age mobility or transformative mobility solutions for India. And then FAME 2 came, and then PLI schemes came, both in auto, battery, and now the semiconductor. Now we are talking about FTAs with UK and all. So there is a clear path of how do we do national energy security and also decarbonize the country. And then COP26 happened in Glasgow very recently, and then the Prime Minister announced that 2070 India is going to go to net zero. So there seems to be a clear policy plan for the country like India, and the natural partner is UK to all this path of Solar Alliance, hydrogen as energy, not only for transportation, but as a country, we are looking at industrial conversion of industrial energy into hydrogen and so on and so forth. I think there is a very, very clear path taken by the country like India to have a mobility for about 1.3 billion people. It's completely different, and we need to collaborate. And I strongly believe UK and India can work together based on the knowledge base and the production base, and we can serve the globe, leveraging each other's strength.
as it should be, and it's good to see that we have got more than half a dozen questions. So we will have to keep some time aside for that, and some of them are very interesting as well. But on this aspect of collaboration, Shreyas, are we likely to see a lot of collaborations taking place between startups? Because yes, traditionally big automotive companies, they have always collaborated in some way or the other. Startups are still germinating as we speak. India has a huge array of startups of various kinds focused on various parts of this ecosystem. Do you foresee that these startups will reach out to similar startups in the UK and they can come together to make a formidable force? Is that likely to happen?
Yeah, I think definitely, I think that is a possibility, and I think I am seeing it in some form or the other, either between startups or a startup independently taking initiative, say in the UK, and bringing some part of, I think in most cases it's manufacturing to India, in the case of certain core components. Collaboration and through that process, that process of bringing manufacturing to India, they are tying up with, in most cases, slightly larger companies in India to actually bring that technology onshore from a manufacturing perspective. When it comes to Indian startups, yes, I think there is definitely interest in collaborating with offshore companies and bringing some of those technologies both to the Indian market and vice versa. And I am definitely seeing that, especially in the context of battery technologies. That is something that we are seeing.
Yes, right. Just two more points from me, and I would like to like for Hugo, Jonathan, or Hubert to talk about before we get into the questions that we have. One is about this whole transition. It is exciting, but at the same time it can be painful, especially for those who have jobs right now. Those jobs can change. There could be a reskilling required. A lot of unlearning is also required, but it is not like it is happening tomorrow. It will be a gradual process. And similarly, the other industry will also take off gradually. And in this phase of maybe 5 to 10 years, there will be some people who will feel the pinch of it. Can a collaboration help ease it out a little bit more and make it more seamless? Knowledge sharing about how to tackle this transition, because of course in UK, jobs is not that big a problem. In India, it is a huge issue. We have a demographic benefit, but it is also a double-edged sword. If you cannot provide jobs to the millions of young people who are entering the job market every year, then it can also become a problem for us. It is also already become a little bit. Give us a sense about, can collaboration help ease out the transition? Umut, if you can go first.
Yeah, thanks, Suman. I mean, this is happening. I agree, but as you said, it is not happening very fast because of the lack of, skills. There's new technology skills in the market. That's kind of helping our colleagues on the other part of the skill set. The fact that we need a lot of engineers and we cannot find all this software, electronic skill set, so we still need help from the other colleagues. So that's definitely helpful. And for India, I mean, I think India should move to more electronics manufacturing base, because as you said, India has a lot of advantages in terms of cost and frugal manufacturing. And in the last few years, and with the supply chain problems, we saw that this availability of chips and electronic supply chain is so critical. And I believe India could be an alternative to some of these other Asian locations in terms of electronics manufacturing. I know that there is already a strong base in India, but this can step up, and also not only manufacturing for local market, but more and more manufacturing for export markets. So as e-tron, we are already looking for partners in India for battery management system electronics, and we are talking to some companies much bigger than us. But I see and again, I should be careful because my experience with India, by the way, limited. Yeah, as a young software company here, but I see that again because the local market is big, they are very much focused on inwards on the electronic stuff. So if you expand this electronics manufacturing, right, because this is a huge area and it will grow more because we need electronics for e-drive, e-motor, the battery, the charge stations. This will also help the pain of, transferring these skills into that area, because learning manufacturing skills, in my opinion, easier than learning software skills. And there, this could help, to ease that pain in transition. And if I look at UK and Europe, the job market is much more dynamic, and there is a lot of service jobs. And somehow in the UK, they manage much better this transition. But the fact that it's significantly smaller country, right, 20 times smaller than India, definitely helps. But I agree. So in the UK, we don't see that problem. Actually, in the UK, I think that the joblessness, the unemployment is very low. But in India, the production of electronics around EV, industry, EV ecosystem could really help. And that's also needed by the wider world economy. We need more electronic manufacturing base at the moment to secure the supply chain for the next 10 years.
Whenever anybody mentions electronics, the dragon-sized shadow of China comes to the picture, to the mind. And as everybody knows, we have a sort of a blow hot, blow cold kind of relationship with China. We would love to displace some of it. And the pandemic has shown that there is a need for more centers of manufacturing, not just one or two baskets. You need more baskets, and India could provide that basket. Your thoughts, Jonathan? Do you think India can emerge as an electronics big behemoth manufacturing hub with some help from UK?
Well, in terms of electronics, possibly. I mean, I'm not an expert in the electronics field because I focus a lot on materials forming, but they certainly got the skill base to do that. And I think that there are the global economic drivers to support new poles of manufacturing. So I think that would be a real opportunity. I mean, I tend to focus on the advanced materials. I mean, one thing I would, going to your point about where our collaboration can help, certainly in Indian companies, one of our business models is to try and import our technology into existing manufacturers in India and repurpose their old plant into updated plant that can do new generation products. So we can use their existing capital, make some minor adjustments to their existing plant, and they can then introduce brand new technologies. So they don't have to completely change their whole manufacturing footprint. So that's one thing we're trying to do. And certainly if there's some Indian companies out there who want to improve their portfolios, which are going to suit the new electrification agenda in India, then that's something that we can do in our collaboration. So that's the focus of our company. But India has got tremendous opportunities, I think.
Right. I think we can take some of the questions that have already come in. There's one on the effects of Brexit on automotive industries. How is it right now? Because Brexit is beginning to become a small speck in the rearview mirror now. Is the industry regaining its position post-COVID-19 and current war situation? And what is the sense? Have you digested Brexit and on your way to what comes next? Hugo?
Oh, for us, we're still a new entrant. We're not in the market yet, and it hasn't had a direct impact on us yet. Curiously, in some respects, it's been of benefit to us because it has focused the UK's attention rather more on our indigenous capabilities and technological capacity. So I think politically we're more aware of what is actually happening at a technical level here in the UK and what we can capitalize upon. Not that I was a proponent of Brexit in the first place, but it obviously opens up opportunities for more easily to collaborate abroad. And it's a reality we have to live with. It's much more difficult for existing mature companies who've got established networks, relationships, and trading patterns. But I'd see it as no barrier at all for us in the future. I'd also like to sort of pick up slightly on your point about the changes that are happening and the fact that it's not going to happen fast. I think it isn't happening fast, but it's not a consistent and gradual path. When changes happen, they will happen very quickly. And I think we've got to be prepared for that. And I think it's going to lead to changes in the corporate landscape. I think there's a lot of reskilling in the offing. And I think the changes will lead to just as many, if not more, employment opportunities. So I believe that for those who are willing to change, who are willing to reskill, I think the future looks rosy. I do think it's much more difficult for existing major players that evolved over the last 100 years to adapt business models. It's much harder to change business models than technology. And I think one thing we haven't mentioned in this discussion is the trend to move away from the traditional make, sell, throw away linear industrial model to more circular models. And this is not just a different way of supplying a product to customers. It leads to totally different design choices, different direction of technology development. It also creates a much stickier manufacturing jobs because manufacturers have an inherent advantage in their local market that they don't have in the linear economy. They're responsible for the product that they've made. And also they're generating an income for a long period of time from that product. So the labor content of making it is much smaller than if you're selling it. The labor content of making it is a much smaller proportion of the revenue stream than if you're selling the product, which means that the jobs are much stickier, they're much more stable because they're not sensitive to changes in labor rates around the world. But nonetheless, there will be still global supply chains. And as Umut said, we are all in a struggle for talent here in the UK. And our team comes from a mixture of aerospace and motorsport as well as automotive. But we've all had great experiences of collaboration with India. I think that the depth of scientific literacy is enormously helpful. The language has already been mentioned. The rapidity with which the problem is grasped and the commitment to driving home a solution is great. And even the time difference can be used to work to our advantage. And when you're going through these transitions, it isn't scale that matters, it's agility. That's what really counts. And so I see ever greater opportunities for new entrants to be collaborating with Indian companies and Indian partners. And so I think that this is why I'm so keen to be involved in today's debate.
Right. No, you were very, very right about the fact that the change as of now, it appears to be gradual, but it will probably go to a tipping point when all hell will break loose. And I think that is what scares people. And when some of the manufacturers, they talk big about going 100% electric by 2030, 35, 40, there are a lot of naysayers and who are dismissive because it suits their purpose. It is much more convenient for them to believe that, oh, their engines are not going to get zero so soon, and they would want to have some more relevance for them. But on your point, you preempted the topic on circular economy and the fact that recycling becomes very, very important. There's also a question on here which says, what is going to be the importance of recycling given that the battery chemistry is moving more towards LFP? So that's largely on the BEV side. Mahesh, if you can give your thoughts, because I've been reading some bits about how India can become a major hub for recycling. That is an opportunity that maybe not many are looking at, but that could be get the technology from UK on how to recycle and do it on scale in India. Do you think that is something that we should look at?
I think that's a very good point, Sumant, being talked about it, because if you look at India, we don't have any rare earth metals available like lithium, cobalt. We don't have rare earth metals of precious rare earth metals available for mining, except for some few quantity, which will not meet our demand. But we have a large consumption. Today, we are the 5th largest. We are planning to become the 3rd largest in automobile. And we plan to consume a lot by 2030. If you look at that, one good advantage for the batteries is lithium, let's say, can be recycled up to 70%. So if initially whatever you mine and it's consumed in India, after let's say 8 years or 5 years, you are going to get more lithium in India than you are actually mining from outside. Because if you recycle them, there is a huge opportunity, and the recycled lithium comes in purity. So you need not, again, mine it, pure it before we actually use it, reuse it in the battery. So there is a huge opportunity. It's not only for lithium, I think even for other precious metals, which is not available in India, we can look at it. I think as Hugo rightly said, we have to look at the circular economy. I think when we talked about net zero by 2070, it's also comes in with the circular economy. There are a lot of discussions happening about circular economy of how do we, the creator takes responsibility to recycle till it is being reused at the material level. I think Indian government have already announced the scrappage policy for the vehicles. It's a start. I believe it's a start like what we have started in FAME subsidy for electric vehicles like 10 years back. So it's going to create a lot of recycling. Incidentally, I was told we don't have a cell manufacturing plant in India, but we have a recycling plant because we already have so many batteries coming out of your mobiles and laptops in India, which needs to be recycled. And there is a recycling plant already, and it will go into a large scale. There is also a large number of economy bringing around the circular economy on particularly materials and reuse. Europe and UK has a very clear reuse policy. India is adapting to a reuse policy on recycling. I think it will help to build a new industry, definitely.
Right. Hugo, there are in fact 2 specific questions for you, and everybody seems to be a little more curious about hydrogen. So one is that what about the high investment in a hydrogen fuel refueling setup? I don't know what exactly it means to say. I think it means to say that there is a high investment required to get into hydrogen in the first place right now, and hydrogen remains a very expensive technology. I think that is what he's referring to. And can India and UK work together to bring the costs down? And then Saurabh also wants you to elaborate a little bit more on how hydrogen usage is as a matter of utilization.
On how hydrogen is?
How hydrogen usage is as a matter of utilization. I think he wants to know how efficient hydrogen is as far as energy efficiency is concerned. We know ICE engines are not very, very efficient. So I think he wants to know whether hydrogen is very, very highly efficient with all the energy that is generated.
Yes, well, the infrastructure question, first of all, of course, it's a new infrastructure, and people always find that a very forbidding concept. And we recognize we have to have a role to play in this, and we're working with partners, but we see it's much less of a barrier than for the ubiquitous penetration of battery electric vehicles and the infrastructure that they require. As a head of infrastructure merchant bank who said to us recently that if we were to go that route entirely in the UK with battery vehicles, every single substation in the UK would need upgrading, and we'd need quite a lot more substations. A battery charging point is quite expensive and only supports a handful of vehicles, whereas a hydrogen pump is rather like a petrol pump. It can support thousands. And at scale, it is an awful lot cheaper than battery charging. Jülich University in Germany did a study on this a couple of years ago, and they put the figure at somewhere between 100,000 and 1 million cars, at which point the hydrogen infrastructure is cheaper. And when you get to 35 million cars, as we have in the UK, it is an order of magnitude cheaper to do it all with hydrogen. Furthermore, it's of much greater appeal to the private sector to invest in than battery charging. because it doesn't have the upstream implications of the substations required. And but the one thing that we're critical of the auto industry is they have no strategy for this. And if you build a wonderful bit of engineering like the Toyota Mirai or the Hyundai Nexo, you're effectively saying to governments, we've done this wonderful car, but we need 300 filling stations to create a market for our intercity limo. And poor little us at Toyota, we can't afford that. So governments, you've got to pay. And that isn't a strategy, it's just passing the buck. All disruptive technologies never come to market in the mainstream. They always find a niche initially where they respect the weakness, and the key weakness is infrastructure. And so our cars are designed for local use, people who operate in a 25-mile radius. And there's over 3 million cars in the UK that operate in that pattern. And so we're working with bus providers, with Renault as Hy-Via project, with plug powering vans and minibuses, with refuse collection vehicles, with councils, to concentrate demand in local sectors. And if a filling station puts in one hydrogen pump, and we put 100 cars into that local market, they have 100 captive customers from day one. So there's a business case for the infrastructure provider, and it doesn't depend on 300 other filling stations. You can then expand the market one at a time. And to contrast that with battery charging, if you look at Tesla's model with these 120 kilowatt superchargers, which are great on motorways, if you take a typical motorway services in the UK with 20 petrol pumps, you need 120 chargers to handle the same throughput, but it takes 6 times as long at least. And 120 superchargers is a 14.4 megawatt substation, which is equivalent to the average consumption of 32,000 homes in the UK. And that's just for one motorway services. So at the scale of 35 million vehicles and thousands of filling stations, it is a much, much bigger problem. But not only is it cheaper with hydrogen, there's a path that doesn't require public subsidy. There is a private sector thirst to do that. And the missing element of the chicken and egg is the lack of cars. So we feel responsible for that. We're trying to play our part, but it takes us longer to build a plant to start manufacturing cars than it takes for our partners to put in a hydrogen pump. And we're talking to plenty of people who we get contacted by the week with companies wanting to know about putting in hydrogen infrastructure. There are plenty of investors always looking at infrastructure, and there's a really good, strong business case for hydrogen. With the efficiency question, there's no doubt that a battery car has got the highest powertrain efficiency that you can achieve. But I'm actually not very interested in powertrain efficiency. I'm interested in vehicle efficiency. And the two are not very well correlated. So a battery vehicle for short range is great, but the vehicle efficiency also depends on weight, and batteries are heavy. So as you design for longer and longer range, the efficiency falls off a cliff. And our car weighs less than the battery does in the Tesla, for instance. And so although we hear often that 80% of journeys are less than 20 miles, I think that's probably true. And we should absolutely use battery vehicles for those sort of applications. But the corollary of this is that 80% of the miles are driven in the other 20% of journeys. And that's 80% of the problem. And that's where we need hydrogen. And even though the fuel cell is less efficient than the battery, the vehicle efficiency is higher. We believe we can make a more efficient hydrogen vehicle for any range over about 150 miles. And at 300 miles, it's just chalk and cheese.
Right. So till such time Hugo gives us that vehicle, we will have to probably make do with the battery electric vehicles we already have. And the major challenge there, and I was very surprised to note in Ruta's presentation that even in UK, 50% of the cars don't have off-street parking. They don't have their own garages. And in India, the number is probably even higher. And India is also a bigger market. So that remains one of the key challenges for anybody to buy an electric car. Where are you going to charge it, and how economical it is going to be if you're not able to charge it at home? I think here a lot of material sciences companies are working on it. So Jonathan, if you can give us an idea, if you can give us a solution where this whole question of charging, fast charging, slow charging, where to charge can be solved by material sciences.
Yeah, I mean, our materials our material science is very much in the sort of lightweight structures, so it's more sort of structures rather than in terms of charging, I'm afraid. Yeah, I'm not really able to answer that question just because of our domain. We're not in this. We're in the lightweight structures market, not the material science for chargers at this stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Maybe I can comment, Sumant,
yes,
because we do battery management systems, so we are dealing with all this charging technology. I mean, one thing I will say is the battery technology is really developing every day. Honestly, I mean, even I'm surprised if you look at how cost came down, right, Hugo? I mean, we wouldn't guess like in 5 years maybe like halved, and it will not stop. And similarly, fast charging technology is also going, developing very, very rapidly. So in that sense, in the developed countries, I think charging will be somehow, because of home charging, will be solved, right? Because when you can have your own charge point, I think this will be kind of solved in the next 5 years. But the real problem is in the big cities and in the developing countries where people cannot afford, right, home charging. And even it will be a problem similar to parking. We have parking problem in the big cities. Of course, if you cannot park your car, you cannot charge your car. So this, I think that for bigger cities, this the charging is a real problem. There is no clear solution yet. But one thing I can tell you, and Hugo, you should look into that one. The fast charging is moving rapidly. Again, I mean, we are not doing it ourselves, but we are part of this ecosystem. And there are new technologies and new chemistries coming out of some really exciting startups. I know some coming out of Israel, and they can really achieve 5 to 7 minutes charging, 80% of a big battery pack. And if they can really make this a reality in the next 5 years, I think this electrification will kind of dominate in developed countries. But I fully agree, battery itself is not the full solution, because the bigger problem is the raw material, and there's recycling, because if you look at some of pictures of these big mines, honestly, we are really going towards into the earth more and more, and this is not sustainable. But the charging will be solved in developed countries, but for developing countries, and this is also for India, I believe the battery swapping, we didn't have time today. And I see that there are interesting startups and companies, and maybe again, Mahesh Babu can mention it. I see this exciting battery swapping technology for 2-3 wheelers, developing and getting used successfully in India. And this could be an exciting solution, right, for big cities in Europe and in the UK.
So I was in fact going to Mahesh and talk about the fact that because the problems seem to be very similar, can we get together and find solutions also which can work in all kinds of markets? If it works in India and if it works in UK, it'll bloody well work in any market in the world, because the problems are the same. Can we look at common getting together and solving these problems together? Is that a key area?
Thanks, Sumant. Just to since it's a very serious topic, just to give a lighter moment, there is always a good problem and a bad problem. It's good to have charging problem and drive an electric vehicle than to have a fossil fuel vehicle and create pollution. So I believe this problem is a good problem to solve it. And wherever I have discussed, either in UK, India, I was at Oxford, everywhere, to me, little bit, the charging infrastructure is overrated, or battery swapping or anything is little bit overrated because of the following. You saw Ms. Ruta's presentation on from SMMT. Even all the charging stations in UK, almost 80% is slow charging. Only 20% is fast charging. Now, the charging and the requirement comes from the demand, right? So if there is going to be a huge demand for fast charging, where are they? Why only 20% of fast charging? I think we have to understand UK and many car markets. Most of the time, the car is parked in your office or at your home, or you use the car for 2-3 hours. You will be called Sir Great if you actually drive 4 hours in UK traffic. You will be tired and you can't drive it. And with 10 kilometers in 4 hours, you will just reach 40-50 kilometers. So basically, Nobody wants to be on wheels for long in a personal car, unless for a weekend or something. And then those times you can use fast charging, and most of the regular use, slow charging at home and office is more than sufficient. If you look at India, as Dr. Umata said, we are trying multiple reasons because we are at very nascent stage and we want to try very innovative ideas. We are trying swapping, we are trying charging, we are trying slow charging, we are trying fast charging. But India is also a very unique market. We have a lot of two-wheelers, three-wheelers. We have less EV car adaptation today. But it also gives an opportunity. We talked about change management, right? UK, for example, has 600 cars per 1,000 people. India has only 27. And we are supposed to reach 72 by 2025. And in 2025, we will have the youngest country by 28 average years. So we have not even explored our life future. We are going to explore. So it's easy for us to adapt because the youngsters are going to come and drive. First car is going to be electric, whereas our first car was gasoline. So it's easy for a country like India to adapt because we have not even seen the full growth. And that is going to happen now. I would say in the next decade, it's going to happen. If that's going to happen, it is easy for us to adapt new people, new technology, rather than existing people converting to new technologies. So it's important that while we talk globally, charging is a challenge. I agree, charging is a challenge. But when you start using electric vehicle, you will feel it is not as big a challenge as we think. We think a little bit too much and then we get confused. I think, look at mobility today. Mobility as a service in India is very easy. You can go take a vehicle in, let's say, a Zoom car, and you want to drive in a weekend, it's available. So if you have an electric car and charge only in slow charging at home, whole 4 days or 5 days your office you can use. On the weekend, if you want to go, you can always hire a car and go out and come at 500, 600 kilometers away. So it's made so easy that mobility as service, and hence I feel adoption of EV or hydrogen will be faster than we think.
Right. If we start thinking a little bit more about the environment, I think making that switch becomes easier. If you start to think that not only the planet, but your own house is warming up a little bit more, and you are using air conditioners, like we are using air conditioners in March in Delhi, which is unheard of. So I think it makes more sense to immediately try and curb greenhouse gas emissions by swapping your car. We are, gentlemen, running out of time. I have a lot of questions here, but just to end this discussion, I'll go to each one of you, and we have talked about all the complementarities that India and UK share in this journey. There could also be apparent challenges which can work against any kind of partnership. The two markets are very, very different. The needs of the market is very different. The per capita income is also very different. What are the challenges that you see, which we need to be aware of when we are talking about collaborations and partnerships? Shreyas, if you can start with you, and then I'll come to each one of you. Anything that you think could be a potential deal breaker, which we should be aware about?
So, I think, as I mentioned before, there's a tremendous amount of awareness, and I think identifying what those key differentiators are between, the UK market and the Indian market is very critical. I think, Mr. Mahesh Babu has clearly pointed out, in terms of form factors, the majority of the vehicles on the road in India are 2 and 3 wheelers, around 70%. And that accounts for probably around 2/3 of the consumption of fossil fuels in the country as well. So there's a tremendous potential for impact for electrifying those vehicles. And by and large, those vehicles do work well with the limitations of current battery electric technology. So I think, yes, being aware and also committing specialized resources to solve for the problems of each specific market, I think is important. And I think by and large, I'm seeing a great willingness to invest into solutions that will solve for specifically Indian problems, or specifically for the problems in the UK market. I think beyond that, I think there is there has to be very strong thinking as to what the role that each of these countries are going to play. I think there's a big push for onshore manufacturing in both countries, and I think to identify those key areas where one can play a dominant role in certain component technologies and the other can play a dominant role in others is also quite critical.
Good. Jonathan, your take?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's a lot of synergies between the two countries, to be honest. I see very few barriers. I suppose I see a mixture of two types of cultures when I work with Indian companies. I've got some very ambitious, fast-moving, smaller ones, which are really keen to work with me, work quickly and get on with things. And then some of the larger companies where they could bring the scalability and we could be a transformation. I do find sometimes that the decision-making processes can be very, very long. And and maybe something about the time it takes to reflect, and is the speed at which you can turn that interest into real action. And different countries operate at different speeds. So that's probably something that I've noticed that is potentially has slowed things down, is the speed of making those decisions. And often, for example, we have introductions to Indian companies and feedback takes months, whereas in other countries it takes a few weeks, sort of thing. But aside from all that, I think there's everything going for us.
Exuberance of youth versus the wisdom of old age. I think
yes.
The young people just want to go out and try whatever it is, and don't bother too much about the pitfalls. Hugo, your comments.
Well, for us, we have long felt that India is probably the most promising opportunity for a foreign JV. We are, as I said, we are for all the reasons of the benefits of collaboration with India and experience of doing so and how well it worked is one thing. But also, we as a company are not aiming at the top end of the market, the elite, the Tesla, and we're aiming at mainstream market segments. And of course, the Indian market is huge. I mean, it is a massive market. And our main barrier at the moment, we have conversations in India, and I think they're very promising. But our main barrier, quite frankly, is resourcing this end. We're focused on the UK. We've doubled in size over the last year, but we're still a very small team, and we are focused on establishing our manufacturing here. But also, I think in the medium term, it's our understanding of the market is something that we're very conscious of. We are a service company. We're not a manufacturing business. Although we're designing and building cars, we would retain the car on our balance sheet, and we internalize all the operating costs on our P&L right the way through to end of life. And our relationship with our customers is very different. And therefore, our understanding of the market needs to be very much deeper than if we're making and selling cars. And so I think it has been mentioned before, but cross-fertilization of teams, I think, is absolutely critical to making this relationship work.
Right. So there's a very interesting comment that just came in on the point of having an FTA, because taxes and duties, they can be a big hindrance for any kind of cross-cultural, cross-country business. So Umut, I will come to you. Do you think this is a good time to look at probably sector-specific FTAs, where for specific, maybe for electric vehicles or hydrogen EVs, you can look at relaxing the duties because you are introducing new technology. It can come from UK because UK is maybe 2 steps ahead of India as far as development is concerned, and India needs it on a mass scale. So it does us a lot of benefit. This is something that Tesla also tried, but Tesla tried at an industrial level. Is it a good time to go back and look at sector-specific or niche FTA level talks on specific?
No, definitely. I definitely. I mean, I think in every business and in every strategy, focusing is very important, as you said. So we need to focus on the right sector, the right verticals, technologies. And in that case, that will definitely help. I mean, I was going to actually talk about something similar for my closing remarks. So as a startup, and we are already growing in India, we are building a team, we have an office, and bureaucracy, the regulation, the tax laws, it's different. My feeling, again, with my limited experience in the last 1 or 2 years, I think India is complex, not simple. I think there are, nationwide laws, there are local laws. And so for this kind of global collaboration, as you said, foreign direct investment, there needs to be more support. There might be some what's the right word, but we can get some project managers maybe from Invest in India to help us, some guidance to find our way. In the startup world, for example, it's very common to give share options to your employees. And we have no idea if we are allowed to do that in India for our Indian, engineers. If we give them, is this legal? What it means in a tax-wise? So definitely in certain areas, especially in deep technology areas, giving some incentives, giving some, relaxed regulation to support this collaboration, so that together we can create some global brands, right? Global technology powerhouses would be extremely useful. Because time is critical. Whatever we want to do in this area, we have to do it in the next 5 years. Because then it will be done. It will be, all the places will be taken. So speed is critical.
I think we tend to forget that regulations should be enablers and not roadblocks, or it tends to become roadblocks at some point in time. Mr. Mahesh Babu, your last words and closing comments.
I think there is a huge potential, I would say, in this quantum politics thinking of what's happening around the world. I think there used to be country to country trade and country to country people movement earlier. I think with a lot of things happening around the globe and what has happened to UK and India, what a position we are in, I think FTA is a very important tool between the two countries. I also believe that like how UK have what I would say free trade and free movement with with Europe, we need to have similar in India, because India can be a good partner. India has a huge potential market. It will reach the number 3 market in 2 decades. If UK has to be part of this journey or part of this, we are about 2.5 trillion now. We are going to almost reaching 5 trillion economy. We are talking about much more than that. So if that is going to be economy growth in India, if UK has to play a role, I think we'll have to look at open mind of how do we have free trade, free movement of people, free investment opportunities on both sides, and how do we collaborate. And actually there is no competition. Actually, we both, if we join, I think the global market is much higher. We can together achieve much higher in global market with our strength than we talk about what we both do together. I think we'll have to pitch as a natural partner to the globe that we can join together and deliver, particularly in electric mobility, very good product which is reliable, durable, and lovable to the customers. So if we can do that, I think we serve what the narrative of the two countries have to do.
Right. Thank you so much. Just to end this very fascinating last 1 hour or so and this discussion, I'm borrowing Andy Palmer's comment when he said that EVs are inevitable like death and taxation. So now just we need to work together and make it happen. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and for your awesome comments. We have received a few more questions, but we are running out of time. But we'll touch base offline for this. My pleasure to host you guys today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank all the panelists for this interesting and an equally informative session. I'm sure the audience had a lot to take from this. To conclude the event, I would like to call upon Mr. Sujit Thomas, the Head of Engineering and Manufacturing, Future Mobility Sector, Department for International Trade, to convey his closing remarks and vote of thanks. Over to you, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Shubhangi. I think we had a very interesting and a very insightful discussion, which was very enriching. Just a couple of points which I thought, which I wanted to draw in conclusion. Climate change is real. Mobility sector contributes about a quarter to the carbon emissions. So transitioning to alternate technologies, EV, hydrogen powered vehicles is very important. UK and Indian companies have a real opportunity to work together, complementing each other's strengths. In some areas, such as the prowess of design and technology of the UK, as well as the frugal engineering of capability of India. Some of the areas where companies could work together include batteries, the battery ecosystem, battery management system, battery recycling, lightweighting, advanced materials, deep tech, high tech software development, power electronics, hydrogen-powered vehicles, especially as the technology gets adapted for mass market use. And to capitalize on the opportunities, it is not only doing business between India and UK, but also doing business globally. It's my pleasant duty to propose a vote of thanks. I would like to thank our partners, SMMT UK and ET Auto, who supported today's event. I'd like to thank Anna, our Deputy High Commissioner based in Bangalore, all our panelists from the UK and India who made the discussion so enriching and so insightful. All the participants who participated in today's session. In conclusion, I will just take 2 minutes to talk about the DIT, the organization that I represent, and how we can support you both as UK and Indian companies. So DIT is a Department for International Trade, which is a part of the UK government. Our mandate is to secure UK and global prosperity by promoting trade and investment. Our responsibilities primarily aimed at UK companies is helping UK businesses to export, help in investment and outward direct investment of UK companies, negotiate market access, champion free trade. DIT has a very strong presence in India, and we work across a strong network of offices here in India. We have offices in New Delhi, which is the High Commission, and then the Deputy High Commission in Ahmedabad, Chandigarh, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, and Kolkata, and a trade office in Pune. Next slide, please. How we can help Indian businesses is we can help help an Indian company find a UK supplier for your products or services, identify and introduce UK partners to help forge R&D collaboration, technology transfers, joint venture partnerships or licensing agreements, making connections to universities and research centers in the UK, providing advice on buying from the UK through information on markets and trends through our UK and network team, procuring equipment, machinery, or components from the UK, financing, finding via competitive financing from the UK, and also keep you posted on all the work that we do, primarily that's virtual and visiting UK trade missions to India. As a final thing, I will leave my colleagues' contact details. We're based in Bangalore and I'm based in Chennai. So we'd be more than happy to talk to any of you who are interested in doing work or talking to UK companies or exploring opportunities with UK companies. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sudeep and Kshitij. And thanks so much, Sujit, as well.